Hey friend, this is episode number 532 of the And So podcast with Taylor Bradford. Let's get to it. Boss Girl Creative presents And So with Taylor Bradford, business and life musings from a successful serial entrepreneur. Each week, you will hear Taylor spill the tea on all things business, life, relationships, health, and everything in between. But don't worry, each week also includes a business nugget that will help you stay on course. And now a throwback to 3-year-old Taylor who inspired all of this.
And so.
Hello, welcome to this episode of the And So podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Bradford. Thank you so much for being here. I'm back in my recording closet. I had a fantastic trip to Colorado. I got a lot of things done. I did a lot of jeeping. I did a lot of fishing. It was really a fantastic trip. A little warmer than what we've been used to, but nonetheless, still in the mountains, and it was a fantastic trip. So I was actually able to read through a bunch of books, actually listen through a bunch of books while I was in Colorado, and most of them have been 4 stars. My go-tos when I'm like, oh, what should I listen to? And when I can't really find something quickly, I go back to whatever series I might have been reading through. And so let's start with books. What I finished between this week and last week, The Lost Bookshop, Evie Woods gave that 4 stars. That was a really good book, by the way. I picked up American Sherlock, Murder, Forensics, and The Birth of the American CSI by Kate Winkler Dawson, 4 stars. Down to the Wire, David Rosenfeld, 4 stars. Tapestry, Beth Duke, 4 stars. I really enjoyed that one. And then I gravitated back to another Sue Grafton, part of her alphabet series. N is for News. And of course, I love Sue Grafton and I love the way she writes. So 5 stars for me. So we're back. And I've not had a chance to go back to the garden just yet or to the farm. Hoping to do that today at some point to just get an overall idea of what I have to do, what I have to nurse back to health. I did get to see how my seedlings survived and also the tomato plants that I still happen to have. They all need to be up potted, which is so crazy. I was really hoping to sell a bunch of them while I was gone, and I did. I actually sold like 6 plants while I was gone, which tells you I have quite a few plants for sale, or had quite a few plants. I still have quite a few plants for sale, and I need to get back with some of the people. Also, I don't know. I think I just left them away from the sunlight. So anyways, they've got some veining issues, which I think is a photosynthesis problem. I thought it was like a leaf miner kind of a problem, but it doesn't look consistent with what leaf miners actually do. So probably a sunlight issue. And my seedlings, so I started broccoli and I started cabbage before I left. The broccoli's doing well. The cabbage looks like it was not well taken care of. And I just have to give props to my assistant who has no clue what she's doing. She's my bookkeeper. And she did well for holding down the fort. I started those seeds before I left. They had no sprouts. And so I've been having to coach her. But she's not plant-minded, she's not garden-focused, and so she really did a good job. But the cabbage isn't looking the greatest, so I may have to restart the cabbage. I don't know. I can tell that she didn't get them watered every 2 days or keep them watered every 2 days, so they've got some leaf damage. I think the plants are okay, but just a little disappointed that when I ask that you need to water every 2 days inside, I truly am meaning that. And when you have to put that kind of pressure on someone, it can be hard on them, especially when they don't really have a green thumb. and aren't all that familiar with taking care of plants from seedlings and know what to look for, etc. So her toolbox is not huge, but she's feeling proud with their growth, so that's good. But I am going to have to nurse someone back to life or back to better health. So I plan on planting out more corn, hoping to do that this coming weekend, if not sooner. I have no idea what my actual corn looks like right now. I'm sure it's past harvesting point. That's probably the hardest part about going to, somewhere else for a couple of weeks when you're like right in the middle of garden season. So one of my life goals in the next, 6 months, 6 months, I'm going to just say that 6 months, we definitely need to have some kind of a part-time hand for my garden, but also the farm just in general. And so I may have to put that life goal into I need to manifest that. I need that to come to fruition because I need somebody that understands how to take care of a garden, especially when we travel. And my seedlings and my plants, not necessarily my potted plants or my succulents, because those are really easy to take care of, but I need somebody that understands how to not necessarily be a landscaper, but just how to take care of plants. Also how to keep up with all the farm chores that have to happen right now. There's a lot that has to happen even when you don't have animals. There's a lot. So I'm going to put that into the universe. I'm going to put that out that in the next 6 months, I want to hire a part-time farmhand. And yeah, so that I need that to happen. All right, let's get into this week's search bar confessions, which actually is quite a small list. I wasn't all that curious this week, partly because I had a lot to do in between our jeeping and our fishing adventures, but, I still had some time to be curious about things. I keep getting ads for the girl with really long hair, and so I had to Google what is her 14-day hair challenge recipe, which I found somebody on YouTube walking through. And then I've been on the hunt for a double oven range that can be hooked to propane. So I'm thinking I want a double oven range. I don't have a place for a double oven to sit in a cabinet, so I'd really like to do a double oven range or just possibly a single range and then a second oven. Maybe I go that route. The price difference between a 48-inch oven and a 60-inch oven, actually stove, / range, is considerable. And so maybe I do a 48-inch and then put a separate oven in with a microwave. I don't know. We'll see. I just thought of that. So I've been searching double oven ranges. And then finally something else I was hunting for. So I'm going to get into this topic real briefly, but my mother-in-law is not doing well at all. And if you've listened to the show for a little bit over the last 2 years, you've heard me talk about her story, which started 2 years ago in October when we all went to Colorado. My in-laws decided to make the trek with us. They drove up separately, and my mother-in-law was not feeling well on that journey. And when we were in Colorado, and I believe we were there for 2 weeks or maybe 10 days, and she just showcased some very interesting behavior. And at first, we kind of all chalked it off as maybe she took too much medication. The altitude, can really bother people that have medical conditions. And then within a few days, she was normal or normal based on what we know her to be. So there was no further concern. And she was fine on the trip home. And then within 24 to 48 hours of being home, whatever we witnessed in Colorado, was magnified by 400%. And ultimately, she lost the ability to communicate. She lost the ability to take care of herself. She lost the ability to walk, to feed herself, all the things. And she's not really recovered from that. And a lot of different things were blamed, like the altitude was blamed. And she's been to neurologists and all of that. And ultimately, they now think she has some kind of rapid onset dementia or Alzheimer's. And she's not doing well, to the point where burial plots are being purchased, which leads me to my latest search bar confession, which is a cemetery association. I guess my father-in-law was able to secure a couple of plots this past week, but turns out that's not where she ultimately wanted to be. And so we've been trying to figure out how to get a hold of the people at this other cemetery. So I did a lot of research at the instruction or actually the request, not instruction, the request from my sister-in-law, which also is very hard to manage because my husband's really not talking about all of this. And I'm glad we're back. She has not passed away. I was grateful that did not happen while we were gone, but he's definitely having sibling issues over the fact that we didn't just stop everything we were doing and come home. And ultimately, my sister-in-law really wanted me to help her figure out who she needs to call for this other cemetery. I don't know if there's any plots available left. I think that's part of the problem. So me working my network list of trying to find somebody she can speak to see if there's any exceptions. This particular cemetery is out in the country. It's not got a lot of heavy traffic driving by every single day. And I think that was ultimately what my mother-in-law requested. So that is what my search bar confessions are this week. I know that last one is really heavy, and it is going to play into what I am going to be speaking about this week on the nugget for this week's nugget. Before I get into that, I do want to remind you that I have a Flowdesk discount for you. 50% off your first full year using Flowdesk, which is an email service provider. And I've been using Flowdesk probably since about February because I broke up with MailChimp. I had MailChimp as my email service provider for, oh my gosh, over a decade. And I just got tired of how many times I had to chat with people to fix things, but also kind of the straw that broke the camel's back was an email list for my blog. And I hadn't had any kind of form on to gain new subscribers to my blog for a long time. And then all of a sudden it started getting spammed. And I couldn't figure out where the spammers were coming from, how they were accessing my list. And it literally, over like 24 hours, I gained like 2,000 subscribers, which obviously is not a normal thing for me to be doing on a list that I haven't been actually promoting or writing to or what have you. And MailChimp couldn't find it either and kept saying it was something on my side. Anyways, long story short, it boosted me into the next payment platform or payment, level for MailChimp. And I was like, no way, like dropping back down. And then that was a whole ordeal because I am grandfathered in. Ultimately, I was like, you know what? I need to find somebody that's not going to ding me for how many people on my list. And that is where Flowdesk comes in. So I moved everything over. What I really like about Flowdesk, they do have two options. They have a straight email only option, and then they have an email and a checkout option, which means you can do landing pages, you can create funnels through them. And that is what I have Boss Girl Creative set up on. I believe the House of Sugar Creek is just on email only, but I needed all of the checkout and the flows, the workflows. And so I needed the checkout functionality for Boss Girl Creative because I have all of that turned on. And it's a really powerful tool and something that I encourage you to check out. You do get 14 free days to try them out before you make that decision. And I do encourage you to do that because I don't know that Flowdesk is a one size fits all for everybody, but I do want to encourage you, if you haven't tried them out, if you have no clue who Flowdesk is, if you're on the hunt for a new email service provider, give them a shot. 14 free days to give them a try, and they give you a try at the highest level, which is email and the checkout. And then if you choose to move forward, you can use my code. Just use my link, bossgirlcreative.com/flowdesk. It's FLODESK, Flowdesk, for a 50% off your first year. So use that to start your trial and then make your decision from there. But it's female founded. It's easy to use, and I really enjoy it. And they don't bump you into different tiers based on how many people on your list. And I appreciate that because I have small lists right now. I would love to see them grow, but right now they're small. And as they grow, I don't want to be penalized monetarily for that. So check out Flowdesk. Go to bossgirlcreative.com/Flowdesk. Give it a try, 14-day free trial, and then 50% off your first year by using my code or using my link. So this week's nugget is about grief and loss. And it is something as an adult that I don't think gets touched on all that often, especially as business owners, especially if we're the only people running our businesses and we don't have a whole lot of backup or we don't have a whole lot of help. And like, how do you give yourself space for that? And this year has been, or the last, actually, we're in August, last few months has actually been very challenging for my husband. He lost his grandmother, 99 years, in June on Father's Day. And now we are working through the upcoming loss of his mom, which I hate to say upcoming, but that's what it is. We're just waiting. And I have personal experience. If you are relatively new to the show, I'm going to talk about my own personal experience about loss and how I've handled grief and how I encourage others to manage grief, to hold space for it, because not a lot of people talk about it. And when you go out to Google, when you say like how to manage loss while running a business, how to manage grief while running a business, there's not a whole lot out there. And most of the time when I am doing research for the podcast, because I am female focused and my audience is female centric, I actually use Pinterest more for my searching because it turns back more female related ideas and concepts and like how people talk about things than Google. Google is very male centric. And yeah, there's just not a whole lot written about what are you supposed to do? Like, what are you supposed to do when you experience loss as a business owner? And I'm not talking about financial loss, although that could be part of the conversation, but not what I'm speaking about today. How do you handle loss as a business owner? So my story starts in 2003. I was a senior in college at Texas Christian University, and I believe I was the second cousin to graduate from college. So there were 10 of us on my mom's side, and I think I was the second cousin to graduate. And my brother and I are the youngest of the 10, if that says anything. And so my grandparents were there. I believe my grandparents were there. That's foggy. I need to go back and look through graduation photos. I know my mom's sisters were both there. And it was a special time for me graduating Texas Christian University. And my husband, even though we were just dating back then, he was present, which is a special memory. He actually, very long graduation ceremony, which he fell asleep at. I have a photo of that. And I don't blame him because it was a very long ceremony. But all that to say, my mom was living with cancer at that time. I can look at those photos knowing she hadn't been diagnosed yet, but knowing she was living with cancer. And just, I don't even remember, a month later, a couple of months later, she went to the doctor and she was diagnosed with lung cancer, specifically non-smokers lung cancer. And she fought cancer for about a year and a half, close to 2 years before cancer won. Actually, cancer wasn't what took her. All of the other things is what took her. Ultimately, lack of nutrition, and I think my mom actually passed from starvation, if I'm going to be honest. And so lost her in October 2005. And then I actually lost my brother to an accidental overdose in 2011. So I have an unfortunate journey, an unfortunate experience with loss as a very young adult. So I was 24 years old when my mom passed away, and I was 30. I just turned 30 when we learned of my brother's passing, which was very shocking. I had a police detective call my father to tell him about my brother, and then I happened to be at the bank when my dad called and told me my brother had passed away and he had been found. And so I have a lot of experience with loss, and I've been a business owner since my mom passed. Like, we were landlords, and I was running a personal training business when my mom passed away. And so I have a lot of experience. Am I a pro at grief? Nobody ever becomes a pro at grief, but I can say that I did not grieve for either one of them for a very long time. Most of that, as I look back, most of that is because it was out of sight, out of mind. And I didn't have the proper tools in my mental toolbox to process or handle grief appropriately. And grief's funny. Grief will bubble up in the moments you least expect it. And I think that is part of us as humans, because we're not all that outfitted to handle or process grief, that we don't understand how important it is to make space for it. And that is what I'm currently seeing for my husband. I don't know that he's had an opportunity to truly grieve the passing of his grandmother, and now, who helped raise him, by the way, so a very strong connection. And now having to process the potential loss of his mom, or the upcoming loss of his mom. And we don't have the toolbox, the resources for us to, be proper adults about it. I don't even know how to word it. But grief is a very challenging thing that we all face as human beings. We all face this journey, and not a lot of resources out there. And then once you experience it, there's not a lot of places to turn, because especially if you experience it at a young age, or maybe in your 30s or 40s, not a lot of your own people in your, who you surround yourself with, have experience. So there's not a whole lot of bonding sessions with friends, especially if they've never experienced it. They don't know how to help you. There are books that are out there that can help, for sure. I have one. Not long after my brother passed away, a friend gave me this book. It's called A Grace Disguised by Jerry Sitzer, How the Soul Grows Through Loss. And this is what it says: the experience of loss does not have to be the defining moment of our lives. Instead, the defining moment can be our response to the loss. It is not what happens to us that matters so much as what happens in us. Loss, it's a word that many of us fear and few of us can evade. It stalked Jerry Sitzer one night and struck with full fury on a lonely road in Idaho. In an instant, a tragic accident claimed 3 generations of his family, his mother, his wife, and his young daughter. But this is not a book about one man's sorrow. Rather, it's a moving meditation on the losses we all suffer and the grace that can transform us. A grace disguised plumbs that depth of our sorrows, whether due to illness, divorce, or the loss of someone we love. The circumstances are not important. What we do with those circumstances is. In coming to the end of ourselves, we can come to the beginning of a new life one marked by spiritual depth, joy, compassion, and a deeper appreciation of simple blessings. Again, A Grace Disguised by Jerry Sitzer, How the Soul Grows Through Loss. So I think it's important that we ride the grief, because grief is actually here to serve a purpose, to help you heal, even though it is not anything any one of us wants to actually experience at any point in our lives. But we will experience it, and it is there to help you heal. So I do think it's very important to make time and space for grief. And what does that mean? Well, that means don't shove it down, because that's what I did. And it truly took me about 6 years to appropriately grieve for my mom, and about that same length of time for my brother. And I don't want you to, don't follow in my footsteps. So what do you do, or what should you do when grief shows up? You need to pause and allow those emotions to be experienced. Get curious about it. What are your triggers? Check the story. Look for shame. Don't let shame be a part of the story that you experience with grief. And practice patience, because we will all experience grief differently, even though there are 7 stages of grief. We will all walk through those stages differently. How quickly we actually move through the stages of grief will, be based on our personality and what our life experiences have been to date and what our environment is. A lot of that has to do with how quickly or how slowly we move through grief. But I want you to ask yourself these questions. I want you to keep these questions at the back of your mind if you experience this. These 5 questions include: what have I lost? What am I longing for? In what way am I feeling lost? How am I coping with grief? And how can I grieve in a way that supports me? So here are some tips on how you can manage your own grief. Tip 1, be kind to yourself. Drop all non-essential and prioritize your projects. Focus only on the essential and guard your bandwidth. Ask for what you need. Practice grounding and self-care. Set boundaries. Embrace it. Write a new story to help you move through grief. Give yourself permission to feel all the things. Comfort, not numb. So don't numb yourself. Comfort yourself. Don't numb yourself. Tell your story, and don't be sad or shameful about it. Own up to the ways you are grieving that might not be serving you. Be aware, be mindful, be present. Don't escape. Get help. Sometimes grief can be so thick that we need help navigating it. Look for a grief support group or a therapist or a coach. Grieve on your own timeline, not others. Grief really has no timeline, and you can't rush through it, but maybe don't prolong it for 6 years like me. Be selective of your company. One of the surprises of grief is how isolating it can be. Having support is really important, but make sure you have real comforters, not the miserable comforters like the friends of Job in the Christian Bible who blame us for the mishaps in our lives and kick us when we are already down. Truly be discerning about who you share with during your grief. Grieve your own way. Be mindful of your consumption, like what you put through your brain. Set limits of your time on media, whether that's news or social media. Forgive yourself. You will make mistakes and even hurt others as you navigate grief, but please forgive yourself. Apologize profusely to anyone that you hurt during your grief process when you're able to. Give others grace because they will make mistakes. And even though you're the one hurting, they are trying to help. And then just keep showing up. You are doing the best you can under the circumstances. And some days it's going to be a shuffle. Other days it's going to be a crawl. And sometimes you're going to show up and it's going to feel like nothing ever happened. And then it's going to come crumbling down the next day. But I need you to keep showing up for yourself however you can, moment by moment, breath by breath. One of the things that frustrated me the most about the loss of my mom at 24 years old, she was 53 when she passed away, is all of the stories that all the little old ladies that I was personal training at the time were sharing with me about them losing their mothers. And none of them were anywhere close to the same timeline. Like, I just wanted to say, you have no idea. You had your mom for 60 years, or you had your mom for 70 years, or whatever it might have been. I had mine for 24. We are not in the same sentence. We're not in the same, space. Your loss is not the same to mine. But this is what I learned, that people are uncomfortable with grief and they don't know how to best support you. And what do we do as humans? We tell stories. That is how we comfort others, or we bring food. We either tell stories or we bring food. So I need you to give these people grace. It was so hard for me to do that in my own moments, but I did. And I so appreciated them trying to help me. But at the end of the day, our stories aren't the same. Our stories aren't the same. But again, none of us are equipped with this kind of arsenal of tools to handle grief. And I don't have the answers. I really don't. And I don't know how to best support my husband because our stories are definitely different. Like, we're now in our mid-40s and he is experiencing the upcoming loss of his mom. And she was a champion for him. And I didn't have that kind of relationship with my mom. So even that story is different. So that is what we are experiencing. And I hope I have provided you some new tools, or maybe a refresher of tools for yourself if you experience this. And when you experience it, because we all do experience this at some point in our lives, I need you to just ride the grief. It's actually there to help you heal. So make time and space for it. And when it shows up, pause, get curious, practice. You do have to practice going through grief. Give yourself patience. And then keep these questions at the back of your mind. What have I lost? What am I longing for? In what way am I feeling lost? How am I coping with grief? And how can I grieve in a way that supports me? And then all the tips that I gave, which about 20 of them, maybe, hopefully, possibly they help you. So yeah, that is what we are navigating in our world, in my world. And it's not a pleasant trip. This isn't part of the fun of life. This is not part of the fun of life. And I hope that we are able to celebrate her life in a way that is meaningful to my husband, to my father-in-law, to my sister-in-law. I hope we can get there soon. I don't know what that will look like, but I hope we can get there soon. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Again, I've got a Flowdesk code for you. Actually, just use my link, bossgirlcreative.com/Flowdesk. Try it out for 14 days and then 50% off your first year. I hope you'll give it a try if you're on the hunt for a new email service provider. Until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And like my 3-year-old self said, that is all for this week. Friendly reminder to rate and review my show wherever you are listening. And last but not least, I'd love to hear from you. Leave me an audio message at bossgirlcreative.com/speak. I would love to hear your takeaways, ideas for upcoming episode topics, and your feedback. Thank you again for listening to this week's episode. And until next time, I hope you have a great rest of this one.